Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the Patient Turning Masterclass with Lisclare. This is number 4 of 4 sessions we've run. So if you've missed any of the 3 previous ones, please drop your name and details in the chat box, and Keith and the Lisclare team will come back to you and give you the videos, recordings, and help you out with that. So a couple of housekeeping bits. Certificates will be sent to you after the session, so expect a link within 24-48 hours for your certificate for today's session. We are recording this session and there will be handouts, and these will be sent to you within 7 to 10 days by Lisclare. So a bit different to normal. This is going to be quite interactive, so hopefully if you've got lots of questions, we can come to you in the chat box. So don't worry, we won't beam into you directly. Just pop your questions into the chat box and I can ask Keith directly. So just so you're aware, we'll start off with today's introduction from Lisclare. We'll move on to a small PowerPoint presentation and then over to a demonstration on moving up and down the bed. We'll then have Q&A, so any questions on the first demonstration, please pop them in the chat box straight away. We'll record them from our team and I will ask Keith direct so he can do some demonstrations on the bed and answer any questions you have. We'll move on to PowerPoint presentation number 2 and then move over to the demonstration for turning in the bed. So lots of different bits of equipment and kit that we'll be using throughout today. We'll then move on to some questions again. Questions, if you've got plenty, pop them in the chat box and we'll answer them as we go along, but also we'll bring stuff to Keith directly into the studio as well. We then move on to the final presentation, which is the PowerPoint on other applications and any questions you may have on the entire process. Just so you're aware, once again, if you've got questions and we don't manage to answer them, we are keeping this session between 45 minutes and an hour. I appreciate this is some people's lunch breaks. So if there is any questions we don't answer, do not worry. Please pop your details in the chat box. Also, please be aware it's a masterclass, but we have only 1 hour. Normally, you'd need at least half a day to a day for a full masterclass. If you do fancy a full masterclass or 3 or 4 hours of intense work with the Lisclare team, please pop your name and your email address in the chat box. Just say, yes, please, for a more in-detail masterclass, or just count me in or something like that, just so we can identify you. And Keith and his team will be able to then contact you and liaise with you and your team to help you out. Like I said, pop any questions you have in the chat box. Any problems, you can't hear us or something goes wrong, log out, log back in. It is fully recorded and we will make contact with you afterwards. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you across to Keith from Lisclare.
Right, thank you, Stuart. I do appreciate that. I'd like to make a short introduction first to introduce John, my assessor for Ireland. John and I work on the same bubble, so we're able not to wear masks, and we've both had our first injection for COVID, lucky enough. But as I said, today is going to be a bit more interactive of a presentation on how to use an in-bed system for turning a patient in bed and sliding a patient back up the bed. So what we intend to do, as Stuart said, was we'll show you each manoeuvre, and then we'll stop and ask if you want any questions about it or if you want us to repeat anything. And remember, as Stuart said, it will be recorded, so you'll have a copy and you'll be able to use it again and again, and it'll also be on the OTAC website and Lisclare's website. But then Stuart will ask me to repeat or explain as we go along from your live comments. The usual start to my webinar is a little bit about Lisclare. We've been in business now over 20 years. We're an independent specialist in rehabilitation equipment, and our equipment specialists operate throughout the United Kingdom and Ireland, as we have offices in Cheshire, Belfast and Scotland. We've always worked closely with the occupational therapists, physios and care staff by providing solutions, education, and basically all about patient handling, beds and pressure care would be our main part. Now, I had to put this slide up because obviously what qualifies me to show you this. I've been involved in manual handling now for 30 years. I introduced the Wendylets into Ireland and Scotland from System Remedics over 10 years ago, and I was trained by Huggins Hayden from System Remedics. I jokingly call him Yoda. I can do that because he's not here to chastise me. And it's created and presented workshops for Ireland and Scotland, with a couple obviously done through manual handling and the back exchange. And I've lost count of how many assessments I've done, both in the acute setting and in the community setting on this very subject. Now, I've also been involved with many companies over the years, and went through what you might describe as the company's product training, to name a few, which I'm allowed to: Argio, Lico, Oxford, Invacare, and HumanCare. However, when I met Hogan with System Rheumatic, I can honestly say the training was based on education of why the product worked. He truly is my Yoda, and we at Lisclare owe him a big thank you. And he should be tuned in now, so I better get this right. I also had the pleasure, and it's a wee shout out for Hogan, which you'll appreciate, of meeting Kurt Durval. And he is actually, would have been Hogan's Yoda, whereas where all this concept came from about the education of products. So hopefully this will give you the background to how we were taught to present the System Rheumatic brand and to follow and understand the techniques used. In Northern Ireland, we actually ran a free session for all the back care advisors in Northern Ireland, and they couldn't get time off to do it. So what they asked for us to do, would Hogan mind coming across for the weekend, and they would actually take the time off, they'd spend their own time actually attending the training session, and it's still talked about today. So we'll be talking about natural pattern techniques and applied differently depending on the category of patient. You can see Hogan in this slide in the white t-shirt with Kurt Durval, his mentor in patient handling. So we'll use the following terms to describe a category of patient and then present a solution if they can use either their natural pattern of movement or, due to their condition, the compensatory pattern of movement. Now, these are the principles of natural pattern of movement and why it works so well. It activates the patient, which is great. It's easy on the patient, and it reduces the strain to the caregiver, which everybody's a winner in this case. So I would like to explain a choice of product. Firstly, as I say, we're an independent company, so we have a choice of what we use. So we decide what's best, I think, for the job. So I've always wanted a gantry like this. It has actually easy adjusting length, and I say John's now going to show you this quickly because he's going to pull it out. This is the 3 meter, and it goes out to 4 meters. All right. There is a 2 to 3 meter version, but as John will go out now, we'll work in sort of tandem. We'll lift it up for lift height. Ready, John? That wasn't hard to do, as you can see, and it's easy to move because I've always wanted casters on it and a choice of spreader bars. Now, we're also using an in-bed system. With in-bed systems, we have watched the market evolve and the challenges that happen when you become a victim of your own success. And the stages of, I've noticed, of a product within the health service is you develop a concept, you educate and train the clinicians, the product becomes popular, and then the product goes out to a tender. And the last stage is what can happen is you're at risk of losing the business you created as a product because it's become a commodity and you're no longer in control of the tender process. We've suffered quite a few times with this, and we needed to be able to control our costs from the start. So to stay competitive, what we have done is we've actually, with our own manufacturers, created our own range of in-bed systems called Superfine. Lastly is the Regia bed, okay? I hope you watched our webinar on the Regia bed a few weeks ago. And due to the low footboard, we have different camera angles. It gets a really great bed for this demonstration. If you want any details of these afterwards, we'll put a request section in our email so you can actually get sent out the details of each individual product. I'll also be using small aids like the positioning aid and a wee non-slip mat, which will become apparent in a minute. So, this is the first part, and this is where we get down to the real world. We're going to show going back up the bed, okay? Basically, what it'll be is to show you why patients come down the bed in the first place. We're then going to show a patient who is positive active and can help themselves. Then we'll go through a patient that's negative active, and at that point, John will be those three patients. And last will be a passive patient. Now, obviously, you can see my size and build, and John will be actually moving me up the bed himself using techniques that he's been trained to do. So we're going to go live now. Okay. I'm going to set this down and I'll introduce John now to the team. And John gets to have a wee lie down with his shoes off. He was awarded a special moment this morning. We actually give him a set of stripy socks for the first time. Great honour. Great honour. That will become apparent in a second. You know a good in-bed system trainer who, if they get on the bed, they're wearing stripy socks. Okay, John? So I'll just lock that out. Thank you, John. Now, as I said, the beauty about the Regalia bed, it drops down low and comes up high. Now, John, like a good lad, has actually got down the bed a bit low. All right? So I'm going to show you a couple of ways of getting John back up the bed first, and then I'm going to actually describe the next stage and why we do things. Okay? Again, we've done this quite a few times. So I'm going to start off with bring John back up the bed, because I might as well, and then try and stop him going down the bed. John, we're going to describe as a positive active patient. So basically, he's got movement. Now, God forbid me saying this, but at this point in time, we'll say that he has left side paralysis, but has got good upper body strength down the right-hand side and can bend his knee. So this is the wee non-slip mat. I've used it for years. Sorry, I'm back to the camera, but bring John's leg up. Okay. Again, because I'm 6'2", and this is where John and I work together. Okay. Now, I have even seen in the cases of one client in it was in Mayo in Ireland, that the person reached behind them with their good hand. John, if you reach and just hold the headboard. And at this point, I will stand here and we'll go on ready, steady, slide. And John pushed his right hand side up and I just did the left, okay? So now he's in a nice position so I can profile the bed. So John, let's just be feet up, please, and thank you. Thank you, John. Made for that. Now, why patients come down the bed in the first place is to do with the profiling of the bed. Unfortunately, the human body doesn't profile the same way as a nursing bed. And again, there's a lot of reactions from clients or people in bed that they don't do certain things in a way. They seem to stiffen up. So if I sit John up, okay, I'm just going to elevate the leg rest section first. Not easy to say. Now again, during this demonstration, you'll see John's feet stand down. And if I want them to rise, and what I'm creating is actually a slight slide, but then when I lower that down, you'll hear a few clicks. And you should hear another one. There's it there. So when I press up, it elevates the legs slightly, okay? Now I'm going to use the backrest motor on its own. Now, again, because John's such a fitness fanatic, he finds this challenging. But I learned this through a muscular dystrophy condition. John, he's learning. He's went straight into that motion. So I asked the person to lose the tone in their knees. And if I stay here and raise the backrest up, and I keep my fingers there, if John can wiggle his shoulders a bit, he will naturally slide up the bed. Now you can see why I was so adamant about having a low footboard, because you can see John's feet now do not touch the end of the bed. So at no point have I compressed John into the bed that way, or he's never felt the need to lift his hips and slide down the bed. So that when I bring him back down again, I'll just go completely flat with the auto contour. Okay, he should end up where he started with in the first place. Now, there's a lot of training going on with single care providers, and I respect that. My attitude about that was there's always been a single care provider, and it's usually a family member. And that's the people that John and myself are trained to show up and how to use this correctly. So I'm going to show John back up the bed where he is going to be a bit less active. So he can't push up with his left or right leg, and he can't reach out behind him. And again, if there was a team of two carers, it would be acted like slide sheets and ready, steady, slide. But again, because of this demonstration, I'm on my own. All I'm going to do is lift the legs up. And John's heels are always on the silk. So it removes any friction or shearing on the heels, whatever you want to discuss it. Again, I'm going to do a cheat. Listen for my 3 clicks. This works on most beds. There's the 3rd click. So if I elevate that up, and again, hopefully you can see this with the camera angle, I've now created the slide back up the bed. And the reason why is this sort of situation is usually in home, and you're not allowed to have a standard reverse Trendelenburg. Okay? Now, my access point I want to be is here, so that I can grab the sheet at John's shoulders. And I'm going to show you a wee cheat, and this is a wee shout out to Irv, who I didn't put in the presentation. Irvin Sahota is from London. He was a physio. He took after Hogan. He was one of the martial art experts. He was basically Hogan's long lost son, as far as I was concerned. And she taught me something at the Scottish Manual Handling Forum. And he was asked during the question and the trainers, well, what happens if the carer has arthritis in their hands? How do they grasp the sheet? And Irv was obviously prepared for it without telling me. Out came a squash ball out of his pocket, goes into the sheet. You can grab here, and it means you don't have to grasp as hard. Again, I get into that position and lean back, and up becomes the bed, okay? Especially bought for this afternoon. Thank goodness the sports shop beside is open. Now, this is one thing I want to put the bed down flat so you can see this, okay? There's a technique here that takes a bit of practice. And you'll see this more when I'm turning on the bed and things like that. But because I've pulled John back diagonally, what I want to do now is get him square on the bed, okay? So he's up the middle. So hang that back up again. And what I tend to do, if I only can work from this side, is I'll bring John's hand across, and I'll maybe just do the hips first, okay? So I'll just place one hand underneath John's hip bone. And if you can see, I'm not going to use, I can use my body weight, which makes it easier. And there's John moving to the center, underneath the shoulders, over. So at no point, I know it didn't pull the side rails up at that point, but the reason being, obviously, we know what we're doing that, it's only up the bed. The side rails will come more involved when I do turning, okay? Now, we're going to change it to, we went through how to do different things with a patient that's positive active, that's negative active up the bed. Now I'm going to do passive, and this is where poor John now gets involved in the lift. So I'll lower him down, and to show you how this can be worked, and John might not get stage fright just yet, this is his 2nd webinar, he's going to move me up the bed. Obviously lowering it down, it's high enough for John. Now, what we're going to use now is the gantry for this, because obviously my body mass is slightly more than John's. I'll just leave my socks off for this one, my shoes off. Yes, stripy socks. And if John goes round to the far side, I'll pass him over his hoist. Now, you may hear me talking, obviously, to John. I get the light out. Now, obviously, this isn't the 120 wide bed. And normally a patient of my size would be on a 120, but this saved me chopping it around, and it actually makes it more challenging for John. So what we're going to do in this case is John's just going to lower. This is the plus size bar. You can see it's a big H system to give me a bit more room for my torso. And John's just going to connect on the, excuse me, the lifting loops onto the sheet. But he's doing it slightly different. You might have seen this in the acute setting, where this would be even like a repositioning sheet, okay? Now, in the person's house, especially if it was being nursed myself, I'm sure the OTs would agree that I would have an H system overhead hoist built in. And I've done this with a 44 stone lady, whose husband was the sole carer, who weighed about 10 stone. So that gives you an idea of what you can achieve with that, with an H system hoist. Unfortunately, in this case, we have a gantry. And it's just a straight gantry. So I'm going to show you why I so like the casters on the gantry. One of the reasons, obviously, is if that's the exit point to the room, and you've done your lift, the gantry can be moved. So John's just going to move the gantry slightly up above me. John, if you move that left-hand side up, and put the brakes on. Keep going, John, until you look at the angle. That's you. And then he's going to put the brake on that side and move the gantry up on that side. Now you could, obviously, if the gantry is a fixed hoist, move the bed once you've lifted me, okay? To give you my size and weight, I'm 6'1" and about 27.5 stone. I've lost half a stone, so I'm quite proud of that. I've actually lost more, but that's another story. So if John comes round, you'll see it acts basically as a repo sheet, okay? And John, all he needs to do is let it take the weight, okay? And because the hoist is nice and at an angle, and before you start there, John, just lift the leg rest off the bed. The leg rest, okay, John? And that creates the slide up. We practiced this yesterday, and I even slid up without the need of the hoist because of this thing in the bed. I can feel myself going. So John now just lifts the leg piece up. If you lower down, John, listen for the 3 clicks. And lift again, John. And there's my feet coming up, just to show you, stripy socks. Now, John now lets the hoist take the weight. Everything's in correctly, John. And there you go. And back down again. And that is actually put, and John will witness it, I am now about an inch from the top of the bed. Okay. Thank you, John. We take that off. And John, if you take that over here, we'll change that to the standard spreader bar, please, if you don't mind, which is sitting just behind. Yep. Okay. Now again, just to show you what I mean, if I profile the bed with me in it, here you go, John, take it out of the way. Now again, it's slightly different for me. This bed does have what's called auto regression. And if I keep my legs straight, you should see the stripy socks coming out of my trousers because my pelvis is rotating. And that's one of the main reasons why clients do not like the community care beds, and they usually get extended out. If I just wiggle myself about and just relax the knees, as you can see, it brings me into a better position. There you go. You can actually see now my head's above the mattress. And I haven't slid down. Lucky enough with 2 camera angles, which we're trying for the first time to make sure it works, and it seems to be. So you get the idea. That's just 3 to 4 different ways of getting somebody back up the bed, as well as the classic where there's 2 carers where they're actually just treated like a slide sheet, and then they can lock it out. Just to explain quickly about locking out, you can slide this up against itself, or you can tuck it in. I would normally assess whether or not the client is being left with the handset themselves. If you leave the side rails up, you don't need to tuck the sheet in. You want them to bring it down with them if they do happen to spasm or go down. The reason why I like this shorter sheet is my heels are always on the silk. So therefore, if I'm moving, I'm not doing any friction on my heels. So I'll just go back to the studio for Stuart, because we'll do any of those maneuvers again, should you wish. Again, remember, it's recorded. Over to you, Stuart.
That was great. Thanks, Keith. That was great. We've had a couple of questions, and Adam's been answering them. We've had a couple of questions. One is the minimum and maximum height of the gantry. Roughly, do you know what height it is there in the studio, and what the maximum height in the studio?
This gantry is. I'm not that big an anorak just yet on it. It actually, we would fit this easily into a council house because I have the easiest measuring tool for a gantry. I just reach up, and if I can't touch the ceiling, I know a gantry is going to fit. But this gantry will actually lower down in sections, which I can show you now with John when I get out of the bed. Okay, just let me pop up. Sorry about that. I'll show you what I mean, John, if you go to the far side. What you won't see there is, or here, is with this gantry. There we go. Yep. It's actually got what looks like a hydraulic pump or inside this. So that's why John and I lifted this with ease. So if we take it out, okay, we can lock it into various positions, as you can hear. Take it out again, John. And there's about 10 different positions all the way up to all the way down. you know, it just locks in. I just took it up because obviously I wanted to look to see it how it goes, but you can see now I'm 6'1", I can reach over the top of it. So you can actually put it into any house. That's it clicked in, and then you can lock it off by just turning that. It's a superb gantry. There's OTs that I'm working with now can actually automatically measure for it. And the beauty about this one is it can be recycled so easily. It fits all the houses. Now, I thought the 3 to 4 metre would be more popular. It turns out it's actually the 2 to 3, because most houses that I've been working with are garages that have been adapted into a bedroom usually. And that means, 1 second, here we go, up we go. You can hear the visual click, so it's all the way down. Okay, over to you, Stuart.
Just a couple of questions, Keith. Somebody's just said, what is the name of the gantry? They've missed the beginning bit.
Oh, it's a Flexi Post.
From
the
who,
Flexi
sorry?
Post gantry. The Flexi Post gantry from Lisclare.
Fab. So they can contact you to purchase one or have a demo if they wish?
Yes.
Fantastic. Another question is, how do you get the creases out of the sheet when somebody's on the bed?
Not a problem. Right, just let me get the slide sheet. There we go. Just to show you, it's still pretty fit. Now, when a person gets onto this, they're usually hoisted onto it. I said to Stuart at the start of this meeting, if you take that out of the way, please, John. There's different parts that we've missed out today. One's getting in and out of the bed because we just don't have the time. But I'll discuss that in a minute or two. But when the patients are not lowered onto this, if John just tidies it up, okay, they're usually set flat on the hoist, okay. Just to show you this, John gets to have a lie down again. Obviously, they're not getting onto it and then swiveling. That's a different way of doing that, which I'll not show today. So if I've moved about, what you can't see is when I put my hand on there and start doing this, when I lift my hand, it's still flat underneath. Now, to get the sheets out, if there's only one of you, if there's two, and I'll not embarrass my colleague who's sitting out of the window in just a minute, you get diagonally either side, and pull. Diagonally either side, pull. I'll go around to the far side, just hang that up so I know where it is. Again, if there's twin carers either side, this is the old nursing technique of tidying the bed up when the patient's still in the bed. And that takes all the wrinkles out. You'll see it's a very fine, and this is why we called it super fine. We managed to make this as fine a cotton sheet as we possibly could, so it wouldn't interfere with the pressure care. And we actually have pressure mapping when somebody sits up and somebody lies down. Back to you, Stuart.
That's all the questions for now, Keith. Thank you very much.
All right, turn in the bed. Thank you. Let's go to the next slide just to give you an example of what we're going to do next. So we're going to discuss now moving up the bed, turning in bed. Okay, and again, John's going to be a positive active patient to help me, and then he'll become negative active. Okay, and then passive again is going to be yours truly. So John will actually turn me with the hoist, okay? Slightly different this, because this is a game where hooking really drummed into me about natural pattern. And at this point, because I'm going to be working from this side, I'm going to lift the one side rail up on this side, which is enough for me. Okay, so there's the side rail up. You would untuck the sheets if you've tucked it underneath the mattress. And now there's a couple of ways of doing this. Okay, and I'll go through this with you, okay? Now, first thing again, bed up the next working height for me. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn John on the spot, because I know John will work with me, okay? Obviously, I know him quite well as a patient, such and such, and he'll do things to my command and obey them and work with the client, okay? One of the worst things is if John looks at me in the eyes, that's your first problem, because now it's very difficult to turn him away from you, because once the head comes that way, the body wants to follow. So what I want to encourage John to do is look something over there, if there's two carers, put the chatty one on that side. John's going to reach across and lift and try and get the side rail. And at this point, I'll just put my hand underneath John's knee, and I know John can do that with his knee. Okay? Now, you can see yourself, John's going to try and turn himself. So I'm just going to move the hand out. Now, this is about a 45-degree angle. Hopefully you can see this from camera 1 in a second. Okay? There we go. And if I gently lean back, Tim, would you press camera 1, please? If I gently... Thank you, Tim. That's okay, Tim. Don't touch it again. There we go. If I gently lean back and John pulls, he will turn. Now you know what the wedge is for. Okay, the wedge we got made locally in the UK, and there's different acute angles. I like to tend to use the better one. So I can place this in here. So if John decides to lean back on me, he can't go anywhere, and this doesn't slide, and I can do personal care. What I don't like seeing if John goes back, please and thank you, John. Believe it or not, it's just the exuberance of carers is the first problem. Because when you've got an in-bed system, this, if there's any manual handling people watching, is an example of how not to do it. Okay? So basically they come over to the system, they don't lift the bed up to a nice working height, and the first thing they do is go, oh, sure, this is great, that's easy, and without telling the client to do that, which they've scared the life out of the poor person if they haven't even told them what they're going to do. Sorry, John. You're used to me now. So, to do another turn, just to show you, and if this was a negative active patient, which could be dementia or whatever, the worst thing in the world to do with a dementia patient is to walk over and do that. Because if I came in at 2 o'clock in the morning and decided to do that to John, I know what would happen. So what I'm going to do is just do the turn slightly different, okay? I'm going to lift the bed up to full working height. John can't cross his legs, he can't lift his legs, and he's not going to help me in any form whatsoever. Kind of like my normal working day, John. Only kidding. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to turn John onto his right-hand side again. Now again, I've done this with plus-size patients, but if there's two carers for a plus-size patient, they need to double team at the hips and then double team at the shoulders. If anybody's worked with me doing this, they'll have seen this. And the first thing I'm going to do is slide John's legs out towards me. And then you'll see me working with a nice posture and bringing John's hips towards me. And then bringing his shoulders towards me. And at this point, John's going to help a wee bit because I'm going to fix his cushion. Okay? I would then set that across there. Lift that side wheel, believe it or not. And I can lift this one. I'll walk around here. And at this point, and I can very simply turn John. Now again, that's not my size and weight doing it. Again, I probably should have brought my wedge with me to put it in over the top. But if there's another carer, this also protects them from getting hit. I haven't crossed the sheet over John's face to give him an access point. And you can see now you can lock that client in with ease. If John stays there for a second, I'll be the second carer. Thank you, John. And at this point, I can put the sheet in. And John now can't get back, but yet I've got an access point to clean. So that's one way of doing a negative active patient, but again, I was on my own. If there was another person, you could be handing the sheet to them and you could double team up, okay? There's different bits and pieces of that, but we're going to change now to a passive patient. And again, every time I go and do a talk, we name check for Anita Rush, you'll know this. I'm usually the bariatric model at all the trade shows. So not only am I a director of sales and training, model as well. But you can see, I mean, obviously we haven't talked about certain clients that can shimmy themselves back in the bed themselves and move about. Believe it or not, we have issued a lot of in-bed systems with only the base sheet, because if the patient wants to get in and out of the bed themselves, this is a great asset if they've got a likes of a steady or a standing aid, so you can gently sweep their legs off the bed and get them into a nice stand position. This is again where this bed comes into it, because you've got a decent assist rail. All right, so poor John now gets turfed out of bed. Stay where you are, John. I just lower this down. Turfed out of bed. Sorry, that's an Irish expression. This is St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. So you've seen John, pardon the expression, turning me, or sorry, bringing me up the bed. So he's going to change things around a wee bit here. So he might have to change the spreader bar, John. Again, just to put on the plus size one, please. And this will do both. So what John's going to do is use the gantry to move me to the side of the bed. Then he's going to disconnect one half, use the shorter side, and rotate me. But John has to always try and stay within my field of vision. This isn't something we practice. This is something that when training with Hogan, we practice this on ourselves until we're blue in the face, so that when we approach a patient, it's not a sales pitch. It's basically we need to know exactly how to do this job without hurting the patient. Have in-bed service system worked for me every time? Where the patients have wanted them to, yes. I'll just be honest with that. Now, I'm just going to, for some strange reason, I like getting out of bed this time. Just realised this is that's my side. I just realised why I did that. So, John's going to come in and attach the same way as he attached before. There you go, John. And if he takes the brakes off the hoist and the gantry, it's kind of like a mobile hoist. It means that the mobile hoist will move into the centre of gravity of the load. It's great, I have to admit. So down we go. I'm being very good, but I'd be a passive patient, so I wouldn't be doing this for John. Just spoiling him today. And all he needs to do for this manoeuvre is hips and shoulders, because he's not moving me up the bed. Okay. Thank you, John. Because all he wants to do is he's going to turn me on my right-hand side, so he needs to move me to the left side of the bed, okay? So at this point, when he's got that on, he'll lift the side rail up again. If you don't mind, John, when you're finished getting the loops on, please and thank you. Thank you, John. And then he's going to come round here, because all the controls are there at the minute. And basically, the bed, I don't know whether it's low enough, John, but you can take it up in height. Just shimmy my bum. To the height of the hoist, John. Because all he needs to do is achieve here is just take my weight. That's you, John. Take it up a wee bit more. That's enough. He needs to move my legs across first, just gently, one at a time. All the way, John. That way. Towards it. Turn me on the right. There you go. And then basically lift me up a wee bit more. That's enough, John. You should be able to just grab the spreader bar, lean in back, and slide me towards the edge of the bed. There you go. Okay? Done. And he lowers it down. At this point, he knows I'm close to the side of the bed, so he'll lift that side rail up. Could have got a wee bit further there, John, but we can show that again if I want. And then, John, if I help him out, see him walking round. Now, with this spreader bar, John knows that he has to use that side, okay, because it's going to tilt. It's designed to tilt, you'll see that. So if he hooks the shoulders on, John, head, arms and shoulders. Now, again, you heard my size and weight. I'm going to try and stop this turning me. Just to show you that once this goes, you go. Up you go, John. I'll just get the wedge ready when you're just behind the jump. Where it is. This is designed to do this, so don't panic. That spreader bar will turn up like that. And you can see naturally, I'm going to try and push and shove. That's you, John. I'm turned. At that point, John can put the wedge in and lower it down. And even with my mass, you can see, I don't know whether the camera angle's changed, Ruben. You can see it just won't move. So you could do personal care. Now, normally that would be on a 4-foot bed, so you'd have more room. But it's a good demonstration to show you because I am actually within the weight capacity of this bed. So it should work for me. But again, the ergonomics would be a bit different. So again, there's a quick demonstration of a positive active patient, a negative active patient, and then a passive patient that's bariatric or plus size, whatever you want to prefer. So if John lowers that down, I'll help him out by leaning over. Thank you, John. So you want to release that. Now, one of the issues I mentioned to Stuart at the start, I know we make this look easy, but we do practice this a lot. And it's down to confidence. And me not pocketing about. There we go. So you imagine the OTs would use us a lot for this because we know what we're doing with the systems. We know what we can and we cannot do. And again, we know what to look for thanks to the training from Hogan, who I hope he's watching. Right, I'll go back to studio to Stuart.
Thank you very much, Keith.
Right, Stuart, you're giving me a workout today.
Yeah, lots of questions. One of the concerns we've had is what about the head? They didn't see you supporting the head at any time. Would you increase pillows for that?
To be honest with you, if you use the top sheet and the pillows, my head was not going to an extensor spasm. This is one of the hassles of doing it online. You'd love about 3 more cameras where you could see this, but I'm not lying back in that position. If they were worried about that, I remember doing a supine lift with a patient that if her head went back at all, there was a risk of cardiac arrest, and we just placed another cushion behind her head, but we lifted her in the same similar way, and she came up in a perfect position. Back to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. A couple of questions around cleaning the sheets. So if they become soiled or dirty whilst in use, how would you clean them or remove them for cleaning?
Right. These are designed to be used in an acute setting. And there's some of the hospitals now in Northern Ireland are now using this in actually their ICU or high dependency wards. And they're designed to go through a 90-degree wash and a tumble dry. So there's no issues at all with cleaning. You can spot clean, but in the community setting, the biggest argument usually you get is how many sets do they get? You know, you go into somebody's house and it's a nice hygienic house and the wife or the family would wash the sheets at least once a day because obviously it depends on urine and Inco pads, etc., etc. And the Inco pad always goes on the top of the 4-way top sheet. But to be honest with you, you can wash and tumble dry these and have them ready again in an hour. Back to you, Stuart.
Thanks, Keith. What is the cost of the sheets and what is included in the pack?
Like I said at the start, depends on how many you buy. We have contracts now with places in England who buy 50 sets at a time. They're obviously going to get a price that is unbelievable, to be quite frank with you, because we needed to maintain that we can offer a training service with this package. The list price for the 2 sheets combined is around about £110, £120, and that's with the handles. I didn't see the point in supplying them without handles anymore, but we have different lengths of top sheet for the UK, and we have different widths of base sheet for the 120 wide bed. But that's something, if anybody wanted, your area manager from Lisclare would be glad to talk to you about. Back to you, Stuart.
Thanks, Keith. We've got a question around the sheets. It looks like you're using them widthways. Is there a reason for that, or should they be used lengthways, or are they designed to be used exactly?
There is a particular reason for that. Okay, and this is the biggest learning curve that I had. John, you and I will show this. Okay, just so you can see this. Just drop that sheet down. Right. This is one of the hassles that when you send this out, people have to see that that's top. Right? You can get a full length sheet, but there's too much sheet then involved in the turn, and the person's heels are on the bed, or on the sheet. What I want is easy to lock out, and I blame Hogan on this completely. This outsells the full length sheet about 90 to 1. It's what we have introduced to Ireland and Scotland. We showed the other length of sheets and they thought, never use them, they're more expensive, don't need them. The 3/4 sheet is the oldest form of manual handling in nursing. That's a draw sheet. That's exactly what that is. And it means that it's always underneath the torso because I've very rarely used the length, the full sheet in a bed because I've always wanted the heels to be away from the friction area, especially for spasms and moving the patient up and down when you're profiling the bed. And that's one of the reasons why training's involved in this a lot, to make sure that people understand that. There's a whole, that's why we actually even pressure mapped it to show, because I was trying to keep the patient's heels free. Back to you, Stuart.
Some superb questions, Keith. I'll mention all three at one go, if I may. First question is, can they be used on the Airwave mattress? Secondly, if wet or covered in urine, can you still use them whilst obviously then planning to change them? And can you use them on a double-sized bed? Right.
Now, there's the question. Goes back to it. First of all, air mattresses. I've noticed a lot, and it doesn't matter where I've been in the countries, been England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and the Southern Ireland. Carers are told not to touch the box on the air mattress. And that's the first problem. On all good quality air mattresses, and I would say most of them now have it, there is a static button. And that static button is for you to do manual handling. So when you press it, the air mattresses become one for manual handling for 10 minutes. And then switches itself back off to alternating. It's in the instructions, but for some strange reason, a lot of that gets lost in translation. Because the first thing that John's watched me do is, when I walk into somebody's house, no matter what mattress it is, I'll go and have a look and see, is there a firm button or an assist button for manual handling? And there usually is. The second one was, can you use it when it's wet? Yes, you can. We actually put this through to the NHS supply chain, and their test wasn't to see how slippy it was was to see, did it move when it was wet? And they said, we're pouring liquid over this and testing it, and it passed. Thirdly, double beds. What do you mean about a double bed? If you watch the Regia presentation, that's where it comes in. To me, I'm using this for a 120 wide nursing bed. That's your bariatric size. Nursing beds do not come in double size, as you know, Stuart, after hosting the Regia one. What you're talking about is divan beds of 5 foot, 5'6", and 6 foot. If a person comes home and they were terminally ill and they want to stay in their marital bed or their partner's bed, then we have sheets for that. But again, that's a unique situation where you have to go in with a bit of care and tenderness, because it's a challenging situation. But normally I'm aiming at nursing beds. 90 wide, 120 wide. Once you go above that, you're in divan beds. First problem about a divan bed is most of them now you need step ladders to get on it because they're so high. And I've seen this quite a lot with clients they've raised them up to use those standing aid, and now the poor patient can't get in or move into the centre. But again, we'll go to the next slide and we'll discuss that. Okay, back to you, Stuart.
Thank you very much, Keith. That's the end of the questions for that segment.
Right, if we go to the next slide, it's actually, if you don't mind, guys, just to put it up. I'll not try and get my shoes on just yet. You'll see what we're talking about next and what we missed. If you go to the next slide, please, Ruben. Now, what we didn't discuss would have been heavy limbs. We haven't time to do that. Oedema in and out of the bed. That is a separate training session altogether. And I've done quite a lot of heavy limbs where the poor patient gets on the side of the bed and then there's an issue about sweeping the limbs up in. There's also, and again, I use this as a true story. There's an OT in Lifford called Linda. So it's like a limerick. Linda from Lifford used to ring me. And we had 3 Parkinson's disease clients in the 1 week. And that Parkinson's disease client would walk over to the bed and just drop onto the bed, and then the poor carers left to try and get them in it. All divan beds. That's a separate one altogether. But due to, and again, sleep systems, nobody asked about sleep systems. Can you use a sleep system with it? What about symmetric kit? What about the cushions? And again, that's something, again, that would take another time to show it. But that's where, as you said at the start, Stuart, thankfully, that you could actually contact any of our area managers. You've got Carl over in the office in Widnes, who's the equivalent to John here, and can do the exact same presentation. You've got me, because we've no longer got nice showrooms. We've got studios with cameras, and we're actually changing it and improving it to have more professional cameras around the place, because there's going to be more and more of this. What I liked about this, Stuart, especially, is this is all taped. so that the OTs can go back against it onto your website or onto ours and just watch it again, because they don't do it every day where we do. So we'll just put up the contact details of all our area managers, if you don't mind, Ruben, please. Okay, that's all the troops, and obviously England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and the south of Ireland. And basically, they're all well versed on Superfine, because we had it out a previous model, and we wanted it to be a bit finer, which we did. So, any questions, Stuart? Back to you in the studio at the end. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed that.
Yeah, very positive from everyone in the chat box. So, thank you so much, Keith. Just one question that, if I've missed any questions, apologies. We're just scanning them now. But a few people would like to do a masterclass, so a longer version with you and your team, and they've popped all their details in the chat box, Keith. So everybody will be in touch for that. Just one quick question around why would you use the sheet rather than a sling to do some of the turning?
The slings are, hey, you got to get the sling on. You can't leave the sling in. Simple answer to that. This is why this works is so simple. It's left in the bed. It's already there. You don't have to turn the patient to get the sling on. You don't have to do anything. A lot of people, unless you worked in the acute side, wouldn't have seen what's called the Repo Sheets, because the Repo Sheets basically are a similar idea. But the sheets stay on the bed, because I can actually use that sheet to put a sling on. And again, that's a separate version. One of the ones I missed off my notes now that I'm guilty about. Because if you've got to try and approach a patient now and get a sling on, you're going to have to turn them. You're going to have to try and get the sling on and turn them back again. Whereas it's already on the bed. All you're doing is repositioning. And as I was doing that, I could have actually applied the sling to John after cleaning them and turned them back with the top sheet, and the sling's already on. But again, time constraints, because you know it's now 10 to 2, so we're trying to stay within the hour webinar, as I call it, because I could talk about this for 3-4 hours, as everybody that knows me knows. And one of my colleagues is sitting giggling behind the counter here, the camera at the minute. So you get the idea. That's the reason why you wouldn't use a sling. Now, if you're going to get a sling on, what are you going to use? Slide sheets. You know, if the patient's a negative active patient or a passive patient, you can do every maneuver you want on the bed with that, even put the sling on. Back to you, Stuart.
Superb, thanks, Keith. I know we're getting close to the hour, so I just want to say thank you so much for the demonstration. I did say at the beginning that if people wanted some more in-depth sessions, please let us know. We've called it a more in-depth masterclass, and I think quite a lot of people have put their details in the box. A couple of people have asked if they wanted something more bespoke, i.e. they had a couple of problems. Would Lisclare and the team be happy to set up a team?
Email it to any of the team. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stuart.
Fantastic.
This is the bit I have to practice, not interrupt. Just email it to any of the team, and basically, if they find it challenging, they'll either speak to myself, John, or Carl, and that's what our job is. Because normally, I could be in Scotland, I could be anywhere in the UK doing this, and once lock-up's down, and once we're back to OTAC and doing shows, we would actually do my normal process of this was book a hotel, go to it, and invite the OTs. It had to be scones and fresh cream and coffee when they arrive, and a bit of sandwiches for lunch. And we actually then have a more informal session. We look forward to doing this in your room in Cardiff, in your new disabled living centre, Stuart. I'm allowed to let that out of the bag.
Of course you can. Just so people are aware that our first OTAC will be the 26th of May in Exeter. Keith and the team will be there. They will be there with different products. But if you are attending any of the OTACs across the UK, go to the website otac.org.uk. Have a chat to Keith and the team, and mention the challenges, the problems, the equipment you want. Keith and his team will arrange to then run some sessions for you. So we might not be able to do them there and then at OTAC, depending on what products are there. But Keith and his team are more than happy to arrange sessions for you. So we've got plenty of people in the chat box asking for that, so we will send that across. And as Keith mentioned, if you're near to Cardiff or you wish to travel, we will be opening up the Cardiff Independent Living Centre in the next couple of months, and we will be offering people the opportunity to come meet Keith, meet the team and many suppliers, and be able to actually try the equipment out and physically just have a go and ask some questions. So it's not going to be paid for training. It will be demonstrations and the ability to have a chat to Keith and basically bring your problems to him. On a separate note slightly, Keith, and sorry to jump on this, but you may be aware we do have a full day's moving and handling training conference on the 30th of June. That is a paid session, but Keith and the team are also going to be involved in that. So if you want to know about the moving and handling conference, which is the full day session, June the 30th, please do also let me know. So I'll leave the Zoom on for about a minute, just so people can pop any questions in or any chats or anything they need. But thank you so much to Keith and your colleagues. It's lovely to see everybody again, and I'll see you very soon. Take care. Goodbye.